All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's Jennifer Britton. We are here for another community call, and this one is called Keeping the Conversation Going. I'm really looking forward to it. We should have more people in the room in just a minute. And we are going to talk about all things how do we keep the conversation flowing during, before, during, and after a group coaching process. So here comes Rita. I'm going to bring Rita in. We've got another couple as well. Hey, Rita, how are you? Oh, look, you brought
Good. How are you?
kids. I forgot
Yeah,
that it
you.
was, it is, isn't it
Yeah.
Halloween today? I forgot.
Yeah.
So it's all good. Hey, Ivana, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Rita is
There we
dressed up
go.
for Halloween. We've got Melissa Law coming in the room as well. Hi, Melissa. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. I figured I had the lunch hour available, so I just hop right on over here.
Well,
Amazing.
fantastic. And I'm excited. So I am having some Zoom issues today. I can't get to my slide deck today, but that's okay. We are talking about keeping the conversation going throughout a group or even team coaching process, right? One of our best practices and something I unearthed more than a decade plus ago is this notion that the impact of group coaching doesn't just happen in the moment, it happens throughout the entire coaching process. So a lot of coaches get hung up with, like, oh, we've got to create that like gold mine on the call, when in fact the group touch points are just one of many elements that go into making a coaching process successful. Next year, we turn 20 as a business, and I can't tell you how many tens of thousands of hours we've worked with groups collectively in these last 20 years. And it is the overall arc of a program that I think really is where we want to put today's focus. So with that, we're going to have a collaborative conversation. I'm excited to have Ivana and Rita here with me to really share some ideas around how do we keep the conversation going. And as I was starting to pull slides, which we can't see today because it's a Tech Tuesday, I was thinking on three levels. So I just want to start by that. One, I think we're going to touch today on some of the tools that you can use to keep conversations going. So what are the apps? What are the different technologies that we've experimented with and we continue to use as well? That, of course, is very client centric. The second area I wanted to touch on is what are the sort of vehicles you're using in the bigger picture? So we can have group support through technology, but what are those touch points you want to suggest? That is area two, which I'm calling vehicles. And then keeping the conversation going goes to something like this, which is supports for your alumni. How are you keeping alumni involved? How are you keeping alumni supported? And again, given that this business is going to be 2 decades old in April, we've done a lot of learning around that area, and we want to share that today. So that's the landscape. Ivana, what are you're leading so much of our group coaching essentials now. Keeping the conversation flowing is a really big topic. What are you bringing to today's conversation?
Well, for me, when I think of keeping the conversation going, part of what I go to automatically are the core competencies. And so when I think of the core competencies, it's really like facilitating the client growth is one thing. And it's also that co-creation of like owning the process and really allowing, and I say this, I feel like I'm like, so I just got off a practicum week one. And so we're fresh in this conversation about like who's owning the process. And so part of keeping the conversation going for me is, which takes us out of the training facilitation and into the coaching, we'll say spotlight, is who owns the conversation? Who's actually like, how much energy, how much focus are you as the group coach putting in? Because if it's overly, like if you're, I don't want to use the word, but if you're burning a lot of energy into your groups and you're managing all the details and all this and all that, it could be a flag to say, hold on, like, is this training? Is this facilitation? or is this coaching? And what is the volume? What are the steps I take to move the group into that? And this is also, I'm actually, as I say this, I'm kind of just speaking from heart, this is also even setting up the agreements when you're actually having the conversation of group coaching, what group coaching is and what group coaching isn't. This is not me to you and that's it. Like, this is a collaboration. This is a bigger conversation. This is actually inviting participants to be, do you want me to recap that or no?
Yeah, might as well. Just, but I think what I heard you say is
Go
really,
ahead.
it's about the ownership and it's about intentionality. The word that I zoomed into is, what are we co-creating here? So springboard off of that, Ivana, and just sort of synthesize what you shared, because I think it's spot on.
So where I was going is that whole intentionality, like if we're staying true to our practice of being coaches, part of that actually means and looks like, are we co-creating? Are we leaning in and empowering the group to actually be part of the process, whether it be the journey that we're going to be on, but also how we want to work together. And part of that, which is what this topic is all about, is keeping the conversation going. How are you keeping the conversations active beyond the 90-minute Zoom or beyond the 60-minute conference room conversation? Because all of these things go hand in hand and do fit together.
And I think that's the piece, right? It very much is, the coaching process does not end at the end of 90 minutes. It continues throughout the week or the 2 weeks when people have a chance to step back and really, especially move off the screen or move back to their desk and think about, how is this impacting my world? How is this impacting my work? And we can really leverage technology. So I think I'm finally getting some tech working here in just a minute. But, I know, Ivana, you've been really great at sort of looking at, how do we keep iterating the platforms we use? Because what I am very aware of, having been a group coach for more than 2 decades now, is the technologies that we have available also help us stay connected in very different ways. When I started out as a coach, we had Yahoo groups. I don't even know if Yahoo groups still exist, but that was our vehicle. And then it transitioned into, okay, we're going to use email and we're going to use conference call lines. And then Zoom came on the scene in 2014. But we always want to be thinking about, like, what is that next iteration? And as we move through the last 3.5 years, especially, fatigue about being online and being connected has become a real issue. We're seeing it from research, we're seeing it from practice. And so, to me, mobility is really back on the table. Someone said to me about 3 years ago, oh, mobility is dead. Actually, I think mobility is more important than ever. And I was just doing some reading this morning about what we're calling, and it's not just we, it's like the World Economic Forum is calling the fifth economy, right? It's really like, we've moved out of the industrial age. We've moved almost through the digital age at this point, and we are now moving into a next phase with AI and all of these other areas. And it's changing the way we communicate and the way we connect. It's changing how much time we want to be online for, how we want to stay connected. So Ivana, I know this is a long-winded way of saying, I know you've been seeing, even in the last 18 months, preferences change. We used the Conversation Sparker Zone, which is based on Mighty Networks, for probably 3 years. But even recently, we've been transitioning away from that into other group connectivity. So do you want to talk a little bit, Ivana, about what we've been noticing as an organization in terms of the connection of everything?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Sure. So as you said, we've been using Mighty Network. When I joined the team roughly 1.5 years ago, Mighty Network was a very active, and I think it probably still is valuable and effective for conversations. And as you said, it really is in the eye. When you're thinking about keeping the conversation going, this is not what is convenient for Ivana or what is convenient and easy for potentials realize, because we've always done it this way. It's actually being able to listen and pivot and adapt to the needs of your participants. So over the course of these last 18 months, a lot of people would come to our programs and say, oh my God, I don't want another app. I don't want another login. I don't. And so we opened up the conversation. So what might it be? And so may I share, Jen, how we've evolved?
Please do. Yeah, go
Okay.
for it.
Yeah, thank you. So we've really evolved from a conversation sparker, and I just launched a practicum program 75 minutes ago, and I offered it still. And I said, and there's other options. I totally co-created that with the group, and the group actually said, what about WhatsApp? And I said, anyone not opposed to it? No one had their hands up. So we went that way, because more than anything, people, like you said, there's so much on screen time. We're already on our phones so much. And so we don't want to have to find another app, another gadget, another website. And so that is part of the conversation. And this is what I'm going to share is it works for us and who we're working with when we're working with one segment of our demographic of coaches. It doesn't necessarily mean that's the app you choose for your own business, because you have to see the organization you're working with or the leaders you're working with, whoever it is, and adapt it to what's needed for them. Some people think Facebook groups are great. You know, there are so many out there, but again, I know even you and I had a conversation, if I can say, Jen, earlier today around the sensitivity of security and privacy, right? Because we're thinking about how do we pivot to where our groups are, where our participants are wanting, and you still have to do a level of due diligence for yourself as you evolve your technology and keeping the conversation going.
And I think those are prime considerations, right? What are preferences of the group? We're working with diverse groups and teams. And so, what do people prefer? Where are they in the world? What technologies do they have available to them? I've finally been able to get to my slides. So again, one of the programs we launched about a year and a half ago, no, 2 years ago now, coaching diverse teams and groups. And when we're coaching many, we are coaching often across time zones, across cultures. And so what is the lowest common denominator? What is the thing that everyone can access without a lot of challenge? What are their preferences? We also know when we're coaching teams that, you might have a team and 80% of them are one style. They want things fast. They want things quickly. And so that's also going to dictate, what does it mean to keep the conversation going? The speech bubbles are something that we continue to really zoom into, right? In 2017, when I wrote Effective Virtual Conversations, it was really apparent that the one size fits all is not the mantra we operate from. It's really everyone has different preferences, different time windows. So how do we create synchronous and asynchronous conversations going? Real time and out of time conversations.
Mhm.
And that's something that coaches will really want to explore in their mindset, because it is very much about the who as much as what is that connection point, right? Like, is this a group of corporate people? Is this a group of moms who run businesses, right? If you're working with a mompreneur, she is probably hard pressed to be able to show up at a certain time every day of the week. That's different than, say, a corporate leader who has time at lunch. They are taking their lunchtime to connect in with a group. So we really want to go back to some of the exercises we take you through, things like the sweet spot, if you've been with us in Group Coaching Essentials. And looking at the who also then needs to connect in with our different, like the vehicles, I like to call them. So Ivana, you've talked about WhatsApp. I think, consistently, that's what I'm seeing with a lot of groups. They like the flexibility. Some of you know that last week I had to work remote. I couldn't get on email, right? I was really mobile, let's put it that way. And so the one thing that I had with me was my phone. But to create boundaries, and I think this is something we also need to talk about in today's digital world, is what are the digital boundaries you have? When I'm dealing with important family and business issues, I don't want to have notifications coming into my phone, like 500 emails a day, which is really the real reality of this business. So I don't get email on my phone, but I get WhatsApp. So I need to say to the team, like Ivana or Rita or Kathy, hey, this week I'm not going to be on email. Anything urgent, send me a WhatsApp, do a voice record so that we can keep the conversation going. Because as I like to say, what's happening beyond the screen, we don't see. We don't see what's happening outside our little boxes, yet it impacts all of us in a group or a team coaching process. Anything you want to add to that, Ivana, about what you're noticing as well in terms of preferences and digital boundaries? Because I think digital boundaries are a really important piece to keep in mind as we are designing programming.
Yeah, if I thank you. It's something that I'm now having to manage, we'll say, with boundaries, even within our potential realized community, let alone beyond, is now we're connected on WhatsApp as a group, but I'm also noticing a lot of personal WhatsApp messages or bypassing email to get to me faster, and really being clear. I actually took the lead from you, because as a, I do tend to really want to appease and, deliver and accommodate. And so one of the things that I've had to do, and this is a boundary, is actually putting in my email signature, which is digital, of when my hours of work are, because I'm in Italy. And so people who are emailing me from California might think it's 10 in the morning where they are. Yeah, but it's 7 where I am. So being very clear. And I think more than that's just an example of a written boundary, but really being transparent with your groups on what they can expect from you in a response digitally, whether it be through a WhatsApp or not, because ultimately I want to be present for the groups. And in order for me to be present with the groups, I can't just be on WhatsApp 24/7. And so there is a balance of being in support of the group, but part of keeping the conversation going is also, and I've done this numerous times, is I've actually invited the group to answer so I can take a step back and leaning into the collective wisdom, which is part of that group process and ownership. So it's modeling and allowing the mic to be passed without it being the Ivana show or the Potentials Realized show, when it doesn't necessarily need to be. So I think that's part of the boundaries that we can do in the parameter or under the umbrella of group coaching.
Yeah. Well, if we go back to some of these images, right? Like, who is the coach here? And I think it's really important that we recognize that in a group or a team coaching process, the coach or pair of coaches are the lesser voice. Peer coaching needs to really, and I don't think we've been talking a lot about peer coaching in recent history, but that's really at the heart of success. How are we connecting people to each other? How are we connecting people to the important topics and seeing the bridges across themselves? My personal belief is that the coach needs to work themselves out of a job. And every time I have said that loudly in the coaching industry, I have had vehement pushback. But ultimately, the modality of coaching is one of support rather than dependency. And so we really need to be quite, I think, forthcoming in terms of saying, here's what I can offer as a group coach. And this is what I'd love for the group to be able to form. And so this can be part of that, either your initial ways of working, or it may be something that you're revisiting on a regular basis. What are the boundaries? Because if you have multiple groups running at any given time, which is the reality for most group coaches, we are not there 24/7, right? Is an individual coach there 24/7? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, right? It's part of how you're co-designing with your client. So I think it's really important to be clear around what the boundaries are, whether those are time windows, and especially if you're working with global groups, how does that sync around the world? Because here at Potentials Realized, we continue to focus on global conversation. It is who we are. And so that is definitely always part of our DNA. And as Ivana said, yeah, it's I don't want to bother people outside of their window unless it's absolutely urgent. And for me, as someone who worked in life and death situations not to over dramatize, but like, unless it's life or death, I'm not going to like send an email. It can wait. It really can wait. And I think we need to discern that in today's world, because really, as much as keeping the conversation going is important, how much is too much?
Yeah.
And I think we're really in an era of there can be too much conversation where everything gets diluted down.
And if
Ivana.
I'm just, when you and I get talking and I would, and maybe we can bring some voices into this conversation too, Jen. But I think it's so spot on, because even I think this is a relevant conversation, and I don't work with teams, but I work with leaders, and this is common conversation around boundaries. And even I'm going back to my corporate days and what were expectations, and being clear with my leaders and even the people, my direct reports. Like, I might be sending you something and I might be reaching out to you and I don't expect you to reply, or some did. I'll say this, you and I are 6 hours apart. Sometimes I send you emails at weird hours and I don't have an expectation that you reply. And sometimes you do, but I don't expect that. So I think more than part of keeping the conversation going is actually having the conversation of how keeping the conversation looks like, and what are the behaviors that actually support keeping the conversation going, and what are the behaviors that don't.
Yeah, because we are in an era of so many conversation vehicles, right? Like all day long, we may be bombarded with all of this. And
Yeah.
so, if we take a group coaching process as a little piece of this ecosystem, what are people's preferences? Again, it doesn't have to be verbal conversation. There may be an opportunity to do some reflective prompts. Maybe people like to learn through podcasts, through listening. Maybe they like to watch video. So I also want to sort of like open the landscape too, that as a coach and a business owner, you may also be thinking about this through the landscape of marketing. How do you keep the conversation going? And I've had a lot of fun actually in the last 30 days doing creating what is now called the Coaching Shorts series. And this is a 1 minute, 60-second or less daily focus on issues related to group and team coaching. And it really has started drawing in people who want that micro soundbite. So, do your clients want the hour-long video? Do they want the podcast? Do they want the one pager? Do they want the 60-second soundbite? From a marketing and program delivery standpoint, we want to also be listening for what do my folks want? And there are so many options. So, in addition to boundaries, what are the vehicles you want to choose? I hope that you'll sort of zoom into some of these varied, colorful graphics and think about what is the one thing you might want to be focusing on this quarter, right? Like, I think I also am hearing so much from coaches right now, as we heard in 2008 and 2009 in the last economic downturn, overwhelm, right? When economic pressures happen, business owners get concerned. And the first thing they throw out the window is the adage that I enshrine in Plan, Do, Track of daily steps plus consistent action equals momentum. If we start trying to do everything, it's likely that the system is going to break down a lot quicker. And so I want to invite coaches to think about, if you were to focus on one thing in this next quarter on a consistent daily basis, what would it be? Because in keeping the conversation going, it's hard to be everywhere consistently unless you're leveraging, say, AI or a team. And so for your clients, where do they want to see you? What was interesting, again, going back to the Coaching Short series, which if you're on YouTube and a subscriber at Effective Group Coach, check it out. If you're not a subscriber, do check it out. But I went to an event, an in-person event for coaching about 2 weeks ago, and I sat down at a table and the person across from me said, I want to introduce myself. I actually have met you. And I was like, oh, did you read my book? She's like, no, I've seen your coaching shorts and I'm loving it. I'm a subscriber. So that tickled me because I'm usually so well known for my writing. And I know that in my writing, well, it's extremely valuable. And as you know, my books are written to be guides, not consumed in one writing. What I felt has been missing are these sound bites, quick sound bites, which is really the Coaching Short series. And so, did that evolve in year one of this business? No, it came in year 19. And I think this is where every quarter we want to be thinking about what is that next piece that we're going to add on to the business. So one thing at a time, daily steps, consistent action, it's going to create the momentum for you and your clients. Because if we're not able to do what we need to do, how can we support our clients? And in a disrupted environment of ongoing change, like we've been seeing in fall of 2023, really important that we create consistency in our worlds. Ivana, what are you resonating with then? And I know we've got Rita, we've got Melissa, we've also got Federica. Any other thoughts, ladies? If you want to put up your hand. Rita?
I've been trying to get in on, it's been hard. I think, Ivana hit a lot of the major areas that I was thinking of through the conversation. But the one piece, knowing that I've worked more with teams than with groups, is just the level of, yes, you need to be candid about your boundaries 100%, and including those in your ways of working, whether you're working with a group or a team as a coach, very important. But authenticity is also important, because you can set up, a WhatsApp group and say, you know what, I'd like you guys to start sharing anything that you find, whether it's an article or a really cool infographic or something. We can keep the conversation going. But then some people might get into, well, I guess I have to share because I need to meet my minimum quota of comments and blah, 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 because I'm being tracked, or this is very common. I've seen this before. So I think the thing is, rather than putting limits on people, is just to make sure that they're authentic about what it is that they're engaging with when they're having these conversations. And then it's true to their journey as much as it is yours as a coach. I think that's my one summary piece that I'm going to leave everyone with, understanding it's 12:29.
Thank you, Rita. Well, Melissa, Frederica, what else? Is there anything else either one of you would like to chime in with in terms of your work or what you see has worked well when you've been part of groups?
It really resonates with me, Jennifer, around the setting of boundaries, whether that group is a professional group, a specific community that's been defined, or maybe that group is simply your family. I think in our day-to-day life, when we face the constant barrage of uncertainty and overwhelm, knowing what those boundaries are and communicating them up front makes a better, more engaging experience for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really important that we are real in our conversations these days and not adding pressure to our clients, especially if we're working in areas like wellness or work life, or just thriving in uncertainty. And so how do we make it easy? How do we make it clear? Right back to the 7 C's that I spent a lot of time talking about. We want to be consistent. We want to provide clarity. We want to look at building culture and collaboration. And so it's one thing at a time. And that was really why we also wanted to focus in today's call on keeping the conversation going. Everyone's going to have different preferences. So back to our styles as a coach, the QR code here is going to help you think a little bit more about your superpowers. And so I hope that it's useful for you to think about what is going to serve you in your world of work. Well, it is now bottom of the hour. Thank you for joining us today for our time. And Ivana, any final comments before we go to wrap up?
I guess what I will leave the conversation with is the fact that it is important to keep the conversation going, and it's important to allow your participants, like Melissa said, including your family, a voice in how we do that, but also staying true to yourself and what that means, and sharing that with your groups. So that way it's like managing expectations really around what keeping the conversation would look like or not look like. And always having in the back of your mind, this is not what's convenient for, in my case, Ivana, it's what is going to create the outcome of what you want from keeping the conversation going. So it's created in a format and outlet that's supportive to the people you support. They have to come first.
always go back to the law of the common good, what's going to serve everyone, not just one, but everyone.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
may require some dialogue. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're back together again in November for 2 calls. I don't have those dates, but we will be doing a 2024 vision session. We also will be doing some strategic planning. And coming forward in the month of December, we've moved our year-end holiday call from the 19th to the 12th of December so that we can provide more people with access. I'm hearing a lot of people are going to take time off this holiday season, which is great. And so I hope that you'll earmark December 12th from 12 to 3 p.m. to join us for some or all of our holiday party. And with that, we'll keep you posted in our newsletter. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Thank-
Well,
Everyone,
thanks.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Ivana. Thanks, Rita. Bye, Frederica.